Shell, thank you, sir, for our focus for today. We're talking about what happened last night. The Iowa caucus is now over, and the Republican and the Democratic presidential candidates are now going to New Hampshire. That's the next stop in all this. And we're taking a look at what's ahead of next week's stop there in New Hampshire.
For so long, we've been talking about Iowa, and now it's over. So what's next? Steve Nannis has a look at that next front in the race for the White House.
After months of campaigning in Iowa,
it's going to be so important for Iowa.
Here in Iowa.
God bless the great state of Iowa.
The candidates have moved on to New Hampshire.
Right here in New Hampshire.
I need your vote here in New Hampshire.
It is up to New Hampshire voters to weigh in.
Ted Cruz may have bested fellow Republican candidates Donald Trump and Marco Rubio in Monday's caucuses.
So what a victory last night.
But in New Hampshire, Trump leads in the latest polls, and Rubio is expected to be a formidable challenger.
We need to unify the conservative movement and the Republican Party. I can do that better than anyone that's running. We need to grow it. I can do that better than anyone who's running. And we need to beat Hillary Clinton and Bernie Sanders.
Hillary Clinton won the Iowa caucuses over her Democratic challenger Bernie Sanders by a razor-thin margin.
I am so thrilled that I'm coming to New Hampshire after winning Iowa.
And Sanders, a senator from nearby Vermont, is well positioned to win next Tuesday's contest, which could make this a prolonged primary battle.
We're going to fight really hard in New Hampshire, and then we're going to Nevada, and then we're going to South Carolina. We look forward to doing well around the country.
With the first contest in the books, the 2016 hopefuls are wasting no time courting voters in the next campaign battleground, as a win in the Granite State could swing the momentum once again. I'm Steve Nannis reporting.
Here to break down those numbers a little bit more for us is Dr. Kirby Goidel from the Texas A&M Public Policy Research Institute. You are a fellow of public policy research?
Yes.
All right,
yes.
So you're the guy to go to for polling. Dr. Goidel, one of the most interesting things I think that people are talking about after the Iowa caucus, surely the winners and losers of it, but also how much it differed from some of that polling data that we were seeing right up until ballot day. What's your general first impression of those numbers?
I think we expect too much from the polling. It is really, really hard to poll in primaries. It's even harder to poll in caucuses because you not only have to get how people are supporting specific candidates, but you also have to predict who's going to turn out. What the polls missed in Iowa were two things. One is a really strong evangelical turnout for Ted Cruz, which a lot of people expected, but it was even stronger than expected. And then second is a really strong late surge for Marco Rubio. And that was somewhat unexpected, but if you watch the polls going up into that period, right beforehand you could see him starting to take off, and the polling stopped before the last minute, and we missed the really big, strong push at the end.
Is that normal for that kind of late surge to happen for a candidate who before then has been in a solid third place?
It's not always normal. So there's not any easy rules when it comes to some of these contests, but where it tends to happen is in a primary contest where you don't have people who are deciding based on partisan affiliation, where a lot of the candidates look very similar to one another, and where they're trying to really distinguish themselves from the rest of the field. You also had some interesting things with Donald Trump there that may have helped. He skipped the debate. He had made comments about Iowans being stupid. There was a really strong negative push against him at the end of the campaign that we didn't all see because it was local television in Iowa and a lot of campaign advertisements that were going after him.
Because surely Trump lost voters somewhere from those polls to the ballot box, but did those voters go to Rubio and Cruz, or did they just not show up? You know, I saw some other numbers that suggested that maybe there at the end, people started to really think about what President Trump would look like and what that would be like, and they started to back off a little bit from their support. Any comment on that?
Yeah, absolutely. What we know is how voters think as they go into the primary season. Their early preferences are often pretty informal. They're largely based on name recognition. If you've been following this campaign, Trump has dominated the airwaves. You can't go, an hour without seeing him on some news program. And so his name recognition, his strength as a candidate was at that point, mainly in terms of name familiarity. But as you get closer and closer, people do ask that question, is this someone I want to be my president? And and he kept a lot of his support. So he didn't lose tons of his support, but he lost just enough to allow Rubio to step in and surge a few points, which in a caucus with lots of candidates makes all the difference in the world.
Certainly made for an interesting caucus. There were a lot of folks at home, especially those of us who aren't in Iowa and haven't been seeing this local television coverage, who were surprised by some of those numbers. So it made for good TV, I'll say that. As for the other side, let's at least touch on it. Maybe not quite as interesting, but Clinton and Sanders ending in almost that dead tie. What do you make of that?
Yeah, that was fascinating, especially, and it cuts both ways for those two candidates. On the one hand, Hillary Clinton was so far out in front at one point. She was the presumed nominee. For Bernie Sanders to come back and to make that a tie, that's a great victory for his campaign. On the other hand, this is one of the best states for Bernie Sanders to play in. And so if he can't win in Iowa, you ask, where can he win? Well, he can win in some of the states in the Northeast. He can win in New Hampshire. But once you move into South Carolina, once you move into the Super Tuesday states, the SEC primary states, you don't really expect him to do very well unless something drastic happens. Hillary Clinton is winning more among minority voters, especially African Americans and especially Hispanics. And unless Bernie Sanders can change that as you move into these other states, he's probably going to fade away.
Interesting. So those Iowa numbers tell a little bit about where Sanders' campaign is going as well.
Yes.
Dr. Kirby Goidel, thank you so much for being here with us, helping get into these numbers a little bit more, because there are so many of us who don't quite know what to make of them, especially when they're such a surprise as they were. So again, thank you.
Thank you. I love the caucus.
You clearly know what you're talking about. Hey, stick with us. We've got a whole lot more First News at 4 coming up right after the break.